Hey everybody, I'm Jack with Future Pastimes. I'm a designer on Dune-themed games and expansions. And in this video, I want to talk about the Lynch Dune. It's now been 40 years, a little over 40 years now. We just recognized its 40th anniversary last year. And I want to talk about what I think the Lynch version of Dune did pretty well, I'm still happy with, what falls flat, and the stuff that's kind of in between. And yeah, just trying to recognize the movie. I think it's still an important film. It didn't quite work out the way that the director wanted. But despite that, I think Lynch was able to accomplish a lot of stuff. So it's not in any particular order, but let's go dive in and I'll share my thoughts on things. So the first thing is I am a fan of the dialogue in this movie, and I would say more so than the dialogue in the Villeneuve version. The Villeneuve one is certainly a little more grounded. There's a lot more, I think, bombast and theatricality to the Lynch version. Also, though, a lot of the dialogue is pulled right out of the book, and I appreciate that. I think that dialogue in the book is pretty iconic and pretty memorable. And I understand that a movie is a visual medium, but it's not a silent film, and so I enjoyed the dialogue. Now the whole element of we can hear people's thoughts, a little bit mixed on that. Again, that is pulled out of the book, so I think it has its place. I didn't miss it in the Villeneuve movies, and I think that they did a good job of getting everything across without you needing to hear people's inner dialogue. But it's by and large the spoken dialogue that I find the most interesting. And I find that I and many other people, when we're talking about Dune, whether it's the game or the book or any of movies, we find ourselves quoting the Lynch movie. And, it's just infinitely quotable. There's just so many great things, and you relish saying them, and you can tell that the actors enjoyed delivering a lot of these lines. And some of them, some of the dialogue, I'm sure they're like, oh, what am I saying? And how do I even pronounce half of this? But the stuff that I think we all respond to is the stuff that is easy to associate with and to make a connection to, and it really makes you feel like you're in Dune. So I love that element of this Lynch movie quite a bit. I think the Lynch movie did a great job with those still suits. I kind of love them. They were maybe a little bit darker than they probably would be. I think the Fremen would want to blend in more with the desert itself. But, wearing these, you disappear into any of the rock areas on Arrakis. So I think the still suits, I remember first seeing them, and I was in high school when this movie came out, and I saw it in the theater, and I thought, damn, those still suits look good. They look great. I wanted one. I knew that they were going to be horribly uncomfortable. I didn't care. I like these better than the Villeneuve still suits. Now, one thing that the Villeneuve movie does do is, they've got the Jabba cloak element. They've got the cloaks, and we know that Lynch didn't like the cloaks and didn't want them. And I think, actually, those cloaks would have looked pretty fly in the Lynch movie. I wish that they had gotten them in. It would have been a nice element. But these still suits, I think, look fantastic. They look like they actually work, too. When Max von Sydow is describing them, when Kynes is describing their functionality, you can believe it. You can feel like, yeah, these catch pockets, they've got the water, it's processing all of your waste, and yeah, I think they knocked it out of the park with that design. And overall, the costumes, I think, are fine. I don't have any complaints about that. I thought that the Lynch movie does Mentats pretty well. I kind of enjoyed that they've got the bushy eyebrows. What that has to do with anything, who can say? I liked the stained lips. I think it made more sense. And so, but then the real thing about these Mentats is they're calculating and they're plotting, and the whole notion that they are also masters of assassins. I get it a lot more easily in this, and they didn't even have to explain. They have the little thing where Paul's watching the film book and he's like, you know, Tleilax, where the Mentats are created. Know a Mentat by his red stained lips and blah blah. They didn't even need to have that in there. You still kind of got that. You saw, all right, House Atres, House Harkin, and they each have one of these guys. They kind of look alike. I guess maybe you didn't want them to think they were related, because that would be easy to take away. But I really enjoyed their take on the Mentats, and I love the portrayals from Brad and Freddie of these characters. I enjoyed the element of Paul's training. I don't mean just the training scene, just the idea that you have these different people. So we have Gurney, and we have Dr. Yui was providing Paul with certain elements of training, and of course Twofer, and not shown here, of course, Duncan, Idaho. But this was an important part of the book, and it was this idea that Paul didn't grow up with any friends. His friends were his teachers, and I thought they did a really good job with that. And you don't get as much of that sense in the Villeneuve movie. And this whole point of this video is not to necessarily to compare and contrast, but as a fan of Dune, when I was watching the Lynch movie, that was an element of the book that I responded to, and I appreciated that they put some effort into it. You don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but you still got that sense. And I believed it, and I appreciated it, and it was something that I enjoyed about the movie. I loved the whole Harkonnen aesthetic of this movie, all of them with their red hair. I loved this look for Raban and Fade, which sets them apart from the rest of the rabble on Giedi Prime and in the Harkonnen. The whole element of how great Giedi Prime looked, I think, worked for me. And I know that they had this approach for the 4 worlds that they were going to be showing in the movie, and it was all about wood on Caladan and plastic and steel on Giedi Prime, and gold and jade on Kitane, and then just sandstone and sand on Arrakis. But I loved the whole vibe of the Harkonnens, and top to bottom. So I liked these guys with their little shaved thing on there. That to me, spoke of status. As much as their black uniforms, I was okay with this for the worker bees and whatnot. We'll talk more about the misfire when we get to that section of the video. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the Atreides aesthetics as well. So I mentioned the whole idea of wood, and if you're looking at this room, you definitely get that. Just everything. They're taking advantage of how Caladan is this planet. They were less focused on the water aspect of Caladan as they are as it's very forested wherever there isn't ocean. So I enjoyed that. I liked the uniforms, all of the Atreides uniforms. They worked, and they are not dissimilar in the Villeneuve movie. So it was I think it was a good instinct, and it fit the look and feel of House Atreides really well. So I really responded to that sort of thing. I loved their treatment of the traitor in the Lynch movie. So we did have the moment with shout out Mapes and Paul, where she thanked him for saving her life from the Hunter Seeker and said, look, I have to clear the way between us, so I'm going to let you know the Fremen are aware of a traitor. And so they didn't go to the same extent as they do in the book, where they're all kind of suspicious of each other. But I liked this moment, especially between Lady Jessica and Dr. Yui, where she can tell, because she has those truth-sayer skills as a Bene Gesserit, that he's holding something back. But he does a good job of covering, because he kind of knows that Lady Jessica has these skills as well, and he's trusting in the fact that he does indeed hate those Harkonnens, and he is extremely troubled by what has happened to his wife. Presumably, he probably holds out some hope that maybe she's still alive, and maybe if after he's done what he has to do, that there could be some chance. And you can see it on his face when the Baron later says, you want to join her. And so, yeah, foolish hope. But I loved this treatment, and loved the little scene where he's looking at all the dead Harkonnens, and he finds his message, and then he's got to play it off to Toofer. So yeah, that I thought that was all. It was all important in the book. It was important to me as a reader and a fan of the book, and it's a very important part of the Dune board game, which I love as well. So I loved that treatment of the traders. I want to make sure I didn't. Yeah, I love the look of the Harvester. We don't really get to see a carryall so much because it didn't show up, and but I love this harvester. And there was like a little harvester at one point that kind of zips around, and I thought this was great. Not all of the production design works for me, and I will touch on that a little bit again later on. But seeing this on the screen, I thought was great. I love the look of it, and yeah, I could buy into it. I think it holds up pretty well. Though Villeneuve one is I think superior. You just feel the sheer size of that one better than this. This is the '80s, and I think it holds up for the most part. But you would hope that 40 years later that technology in filmmaking is improved, and it is. So that's not a surprise. I loved the whole death of Yui. And again, I guess I will compare a little bit better than how they handled it in the Villeneuve. I love that Piter is right there and just stabs him in the back, literally and figuratively. And he gets his little speech there as he's dying, which I loved. I felt like he deserved to be able to get out that last little bit, and I thought it was a great scene. I just really loved the way it's handled. I love the look of this whole room. Feels kind of like a chapel or something. Like this is the last place you expect to be stabbed to death, but that's where it happens. So this is a great moment for me, and I really enjoyed that. And then it's immediately followed up by I think another great scene, which was handled really well, the death of Lato, or he's more of a Leto in the Lynch one. But I loved the way they shot that with the Baron was kind of in his face, and then he backs away, and Piter comes in, but it's you can still sense the effects of the drugs on the Duke, which is why he thought he had managed to get it, and so it's a little more believable, I think, than the more recent version, which is not bad. I don't dislike it, but I love this scene. I thought it was handled really well, and I love the little end there where the Baron is bewildered and Nefud comes in and he's like, "Am I alive?" And he's like, "Yes, my Baron, you're alive." And he's like, "Woohoo!" And flies up in celebration. I love that scene, and so that whole segment I thought was really handled well. I like the Fremen in this movie. I really love this scene. It was just such a tiny little scene, but putting the red paint on the still suits for the Fedaykin, or as they called them in this movie, the Fedaykin. And I loved this whole segment. But yeah, I enjoyed the Fremen. I felt like they did a pretty good job of making them feel like a native to this planet people with their own ways and culture. And there was a lot of Fremen stuff that they shot that did not make it into the theatrical version. And of course, I've seen the Alan Smithy cut of Dune, which has a lot of the deleted stuff in there, and some of the deleted stuff is really interesting and well done, and a lot of it was like this was the right stuff to cut, and you get more of the Fremen culture, and the culture stuff is the stuff I think I like a lot more. I do enjoy the idea of Paul fighting Jamis. I wish that they'd been able to keep that in there. I think it's an important rite of passage in a couple of different ways. It's really pivotal in the book. So I missed not having that in there. You get the scene where Jessica grabs Stilgar and Paul kind of whisks his way up to the top, and there's Chani sees him, and that scene was pretty good. But I liked all of the other Fremen stuff quite a bit. I love the Sons of Jamis, which of course we don't really know that, but they're part of the people that Paul is training. And so, yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. I really liked their sandworms. I loved the look of them. I thought that the effect was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it, seeing it on the screen as a teenager. And I love this shot as well. This is after Paul has first proven that he can ride the worm, and you can see him and Stilgar up there on the top, and you can see all the Fremen, the Fedaykin there rushing up. I thought that was a great shot. It looked really good on the big screen, and this particular shot here. There's other shots of the that I'll talk about later that don't work for me and never did. But I love the look of this worm. I like it better than the Villeneuve worm overall. I love that idea of it, the three ends that open up, and then there's like another three more inside, and then you can see all the teeth. What I do like about the Villeneuve worm is that, when the mouth is wide open, it does look like an eye. That's pretty awesome, and those worms look great. They hold up pretty well. But I thought I love the look of Shia here. I thought it was great. It was a really interesting design, and they made it work. I love the duel at the end of the movie. I was already a really big Sting fan, so I loved Sting in this movie, and Sting with red hair I thought was awesome. And you can certainly make the argument that he's not the greatest actor, but he does capture the essence of Phaedra and does it really well. And I thought this was choreographed. Of course, the duel in the Villeneuve movie is fantastic. It's really well choreographed. It's brutal. I do have my quibbles about it, and you can see all that in my other video of I love the new Dune movies. But I do enjoy the duel. I loved this, in the theater again as a teenager, and even I saw the re-release last year in theaters as well, and it was great watching the Lynch Dune on the big screen one more time. And I always enjoy this. The music is great. I love they brought in some Fremen with some drums. They're like, yeah, finally we get to do something. And yeah, I thought this was a good fight, well choreographed. I enjoyed the treachery element especially. Yeah, biting of the fingers. We don't get the benefit in the Lynch Dune of seeing Fade fight in the arena and learning what kind of a duelist he is. So that was unfortunate, and that is one of the best parts of the Villeneuve movies. We do get to see Fade in action. That sequence was pretty good. I do have my problems with that sequence in that version, but I liked this, and then I especially liked that the extra treachery. It's one of my favorite parts of the book was the fact that Fade had stacked the deck a little bit in his favor, and so I enjoyed that element in this particular duel. I thought it was a nice way to raise the stakes, and yeah, it was just fun to watch. I love the end credits. I always like it in movies when you get a nice picture of somebody in there, and there's the actor or the actress's name and their character name, and I think part of this too. I thought overall the casting was really good. In terms of authenticity to Dune, I feel like the Villeneuve movie does a better job of it. There's still people who complain that not enough of the Fremen had what you would expect to be a Middle Eastern quality to it. I thought it's definitely there, and you get a better sense of the different regionalities of Fremen in that. I thought they handled that really well. But this was a fun cast for the 80s. Just a really great cast of people to be in there. Very exciting. It's fun to read through and learn about who almost got cast. Val Kilmer as Paul. He was their guy for quite a while. And yeah, screen tested with Sean Young. But in a lot of other actresses almost as Chani. But yeah, I really love that. The music, the Brian Eno score there, I think is great. I always enjoy sitting through these credits when I watch the Lynch movie. This section I call Yes and No. It's elements of this Lynch movie that some of it works, and some of it works some of the time, and other times not quite. So, I mean, and even this moment here where these guys come out in the red robes, I was like, what? Where were these guys hanging out? I don't know. But Alia. So Alia, it's a mixed bag. A lot of people, they just can't get around Alicia Witt's little voice. but I really thought that she did a good job of portraying, who Alia is. And I love this shot of the movie. It's just kind of like, it's like, why even have it in here? But it stays with me, and I really enjoy it. And I enjoyed her performance. I liked having an Alia. It's You get some sense of the passage of time. And Alia is a good way to mark that passage, and you can believe that maybe she is maturing at a faster rate for some reason because of the whole ordeal. And with the Alia and the Villeneuve movie being just in an in utero character who doesn't really even talk, as Jessica talking for her, it works. It works. And I can understand why they didn't want to have a little Alia. I still think that the miniseries actually probably did the best, and that's my favorite Alia was the one in the miniseries. But I did like this one. But in some ways, it's the most ridiculous part of the movie for some people. So I can understand why it doesn't really. It's a yes and no. The Baron also kind of a yes and no. There are some moments where I thought it was great. I love this scene where he's triumphantly. He floats up and then he skeeves out on that slave Harkonnen guy. And, a lot of people were like, why did they give him all of these yucky pus boils and stuff on his face? And, wasn't it enough that he's just evil, but he's also fat and he's also this? And I was like, oh, that doesn't necessarily bother me. But sometimes it doesn't quite work. And he's a little bit cartoonish. The take with Stellan Skarsgård, it's probably a little bit better, although I still feel like they didn't do as much with the Baron in the new movies. So this one is a lot more colorful, a lot more memorable, and there's a lot of areas, a lot of moments that I do like, and I thought Kenneth did a pretty good job with it. I think a lot of people feel like the miniseries Baron is the most accurate Baron, and I think so. I would have liked to have seen maybe an amalgam of all three Barons, and then you really would have gotten the Baron right. Prescience is also a mixed bag for me. Some of these visual elements, they didn't work for me as a teenager. They still don't really hold up very well. But then again, there's some of it where the dreamlike elements where he keeps having these little flashes. You get the hand, you get the drop of water, like the drop of water. The shots of that moon with the Muad'Dib mouse shadow. Some of it does work. There's a good prescience moment right before the Hunter Seeker shows up, and I enjoyed that. It's right after he takes a bite of some raw spice, a little spice bar. That one worked out pretty well. And this idea of prescience, I think they did a good job of trying to convey that it was a thing and kind of how it was working. But some of it was, I just didn't really like the visuals, the way that they shot it. So it fell a little bit flat for me on occasion. Whatever this is, I know what it is. But most people watching the movie, they had no idea what this was. They didn't really explain it. I remember watching it the first time. I was like, wait a minute, what about it? And it was after later, it was like, oh, yeah, he's got that residual poison. And I guess this is how he gets the antidote. But how? And it was just kind of weird that it's this. It looks like a science project from like a 10-year-old. And it's kind of weird. A little less sophisticated than I think it probably would be. I think this is probably, I feel like it's pure David Lynch. Like I always wanted to have a cat and a mouse taped together and forced to do something. And he's like, ooh, why don't we do it here? That's what I feel like. And so it feels a little shoehorned in. Part of me is like, this is fantastic. I love it. And part of me is like, what in the world are we doing here? And so it was just, I want to ask Sting. So how was that? What was it like? Did the cat and the mouse, did they get along? Who protested the most? How many hours were they taped together like that? What did PETA think? So these are the sorts of things that go through my mind when I see this. The weirding modules is also, it's kind of a mixed bag. I remember when I first saw it, I was like, what in the world are they doing? But as an idea, it's a kind of a cool idea. This idea, you're using sound as a weapon. I don't know how it's better than just let's arm up with guns. And so it would have been nice if they could have maybe mentioned how shields are not stopped by the weirding modules, even though nobody's using a shield on Arrakis. So maybe it's not as effective there, or it's not any more or less effective than normal weaponry. But if they talk, they when the emperor mentions to the guild that he feels threatened by House Atreides because they're developing a new army with a technology using sound that they don't quite understand, it would have been nice, if he would said, yeah, this is the sort of thing, our shields would be useless against it. Then you're like, okay, this is a big deal. So I wish they'd done something like that. My whole thing, this is my theory, and I don't really have any way to verify it. And but I feel like that Lynch and whoever else was involved in writing and making this happen, they read about the weirding way in the book and they loved the sound of it. It's easy to imagine David Lynch going, the weirding way, that sounds great, whatever that is. And it's kind of a prana bindo martial arts thing, which the Fremen are like, yeah, we'd love to learn that so that we can become better fighters. Although they're already the best fighters in the galaxy, so do they really need the weirding way? I don't feel like they did. And so it wasn't really, it was brought up in the book, but it wasn't really something that they kept revisiting. But it stuck with Lynch, I think, and he's like, how do I show the weirding way? And he didn't want to do kung fu. And so they came up with this idea. And so it's an interesting idea. I don't know that it really fits in Dune. And there's mixed results. But again, you love that whole idea that Muad'Dib is a killing word. That's kind of a cool thing. And the way that they discover it was a cool scene. So there's stuff about it that I like, and they made it an important plot element. It was certainly not tied to the Bene Gesserit in any way, and so it's interesting that you have that scene where Jessica, subdues Stilgar, just using her normal Bene Gesserit skills, but those didn't have as much interest to the Fremen as Paul and whatnot. So yeah, it was kind of that doesn't quite ring true, doesn't quite work. There's some neat ideas for non-Dune people. They think that it's a Dune thing, but it's not really a Dune thing. So yeah, it's a mixed bag there. Let's talk now about things that didn't work for me then and still don't. I always felt like they didn't need to do this. Put on these suits for the atomics that they're using to blow up the shield wall, but maybe they did. Who knows? They certainly didn't worry about it in the Villeneuve movie, and so I just thought, I was like, where did they get these hazmat suits, these nuclear safety suits, and how come only the three of them seem to be wearing them? There were a bunch of other Fremen in that cave. I don't know. Shields don't really work. They didn't. When watching it then, I was like, oh, shields, I can't wait to see how they do it. And I was like, this is what they did, huh? So yeah, it looked like it was animated, like it was hand drawn. There's some interesting ideas here. I thought the blurring was cool, and you can see how the edge there, you're getting half of Gurney's head is up and his face is down, and so they did a pretty good job with what they could do. But at the end of the day, it didn't really work for me. I didn't love it. It was very clunky, and you can't imagine, people would like put their shields on and then just walk around. And in the Villeneuve movie, you're able to do that because you can't really see anything. It's not until you actually try to get past the shield that you're seeing its presence, and so that just works much better. And if they had done that for this movie, they probably could have pulled it off just as well, even back in the 80s. So that was a better approach, and this did not quite work out for me. I always absolutely hated that Ornithopter. I thought, what in the world is this clunky thing? And did not like the design, didn't like it flying around. Hated seeing it in a shot with that harvester, which I love. And so this never worked for me. I understand they were going to have a hard time pulling off an Ornithopter like the one in the Villeneuve movies, which are great. Those are fantastic. They're worth the price of admission alone. And but these, I don't know. I don't like those very much. The Sardaukar. They don't really let you know that these are supposed to be Sardaukar. They don't really get into that very much in the movie, but you've got, the scene where Duncan kills one, but then he's not quite dead and he gets back up, and that's this scene right here. But even just the look of the Harkin and Terror troops there or whatever. This was not a look that I liked. Just found it to be really clunky, and they're not fighting in space. That would be make more sense. These are not offering them any protection from anything. I don't think. So I hated that look, and I really hated it at the end of the movie where they're shooting their laser guns up at the worms out there in the desert, and then trying to run away in these stupid suits. This was not a good design, and I really did not enjoy it. The scene where Paul falls and the Shai Hulud is banging up against a rock, and he slips off and falls. Boy, that looked terrible even then, and it's never going to look any better. And so I hated that effect. And I think that's all we need to say about that. The worm riding scene also, like this particular shot, these didn't work. They looked like they were green screened. This is when the Toto soundtrack, I think, went off the rails a little bit because it was all electric guitar. I love the score otherwise. I love the Toto score. That Dune, 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 Dune. That's the Dune theme. As far as I think anybody is concerned. Everybody knows that theme and they like it and it's good. And this moment, though, I was a little cringy for me, so didn't love it. Hated the design of every spaceship in this movie. I understand they wanted to get away. They didn't want it to look like Star Wars. They didn't want it to be sleek silver spaceships. So they were going for kind of a retro 50s thing. Doesn't work for me. Don't love it. Don't like those highliners, although the highliners are probably the best thing out of there, but I hated that Lego looking ship. Didn't like the Harkonnens Lego ships that were flying around. Didn't like the Atres Lego ship that was flying up to get into the highliner. Not a fan of this particular design. Really hated this contraption that was in the Emperor's back room. The spinning, I call it the arcade. It's like they're playing a bunch of video games. I could see this at Dave & Buster's for sure, and I definitely would play it. Seems like it would be a fun game. But I just thought this scene was really dumb, and I hated all of the generals as well. They seemed, with the guy with the metal nose and whatever. They didn't seem like actors. They didn't seem like generals. They seemed like guys that they found off the street and said, "Put on this uniform." So I didn't like any of those. I didn't like any of this, and I don't think that Jose Ferrer sold getting in on the action and trying to shoot sandworms and whatnot. Didn't work. All of Act 3 doesn't quite work. This is where they really condensed all of the stuff to try to get down to a 2-ish hour length on the movie. You have all these, dissolves and narrations. Alia got older. Paul and Chani loved each other more. No, it doesn't work, and it doesn't make sense. Here's where you lose the thread. You're trying. There's a lot that's going on here. It's an entire 2-hour movie in the Villeneuve version. And so, yeah, they're just having to condense it and understand why. And I know that Lynch probably hates this the most as well. The first act, even the second act, that's where all your great set pieces are. They take their time. You've got the pain box, and you've got, the training with the shields, and you also got the training with the weirding module. That's not even in the book, but they got to put that in there to make it work in the movie. And you've got the Hunter Seeker, and you've got, all of those important set pieces in the movie, some of which we've talked about, and they're great moments. They're done really well, but all of Act 3 was just so rushed and goofy, and it just doesn't work. And then we end with Rain on Arrakis. It's just, and it's not. It just doesn't work for Dune. This is not a power that the Kwisatz Haderach should have. And even if he did, it would probably take a while to gather all the moisture into the air and form clouds, and then get the rain to drop down and cover all of Arakeen. And yeah, I mean, this is a cool shot. Don't get me wrong. This is a nice shot. I like this shot. But this notion of Muad'Dib has made it rain. What is this? No, doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. And didn't love it. And in fact, hated it. That said, overall, I think the Dune from 1984 from David Lynch is a very memorable experience. It's very Dune as well. I really love it. I love this movie, and I will watch it again and again. I've seen it easily 20 times, and I'll probably watch the Villeneuve movie that many times for sure as well, because I love that movie too. Those two movies, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I even enjoy the TV show. But if I'm being honest, I like the Lynch movie better than Dune Prophecy. It's just more fun. It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie experience. So let me know in the comments how much you love it. I mean, you can trash it if you want, especially a lot of the younger people that, you didn't have the thing where this was the only Dune experience that we could get. And it was the only Dune experience that we had for decades. And overall, it did the job. It scratched that itch for us. Yes, we knew even then that it could have been better, and a lot of things didn't quite work. But overall, it was a pretty great time, and we quote that movie still. Even people who weren't born yet quote that movie, and so it's got that going for it. So, like I said, let me know in the comments your thoughts, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.